My son-in-law forgot his phone on my coffee table last Sunday night. When it rang, the screen lit up with a face I had not seen in 5 years. It was my dead wife. But the real horror began when I pressed play on the voicemail and heard her voice begging me to sell our home from beyond the grave. Before I tell you what I did next, please like and subscribe to follow this story of justice. I stood in the center of my living room, the silence of the house pressing against my ears. The Sunday roast I had cooked for my daughter Sarah and her husband Jason was still sitting heavy in my stomach. The air smelled faintly of rosemary, and the expensive cologne Jason always wore a scent that lingered long after he left like a territory marking. I was just about to clear the table when I saw it. Jason's phone. It was sitting on the edge of the leather sofa, half hidden by a throw pillow. It was the latest model, sleek and black, the kind that costs more than my first car. He must have slipped it out of his pocket when he sat down to complain about the economy, which was his favorite topic of conversation lately. I reached out to grab it, thinking I could run out to the driveway and catch him before he pulled away. But before my fingers could even touch the cold glass, the screen lit up. The room was dim, illuminated only by the streetlights filtering through the sheer curtains, so the brightness of the screen was blinding. And then I saw the photo. My breath hitched in my throat, a sharp physical pain that radiated down my left arm. It was Catherine. My Catherine. But it wasn't just any photo. It was a picture I had taken of her in the hospital garden just a week before the cancer took her from me 5 years ago. She was wearing her blue cardigan, the one she said made her feel safe. She looked frail, but her smile was there, that gentle curve of her lips that had anchored my world for 40 years. Below the photo, the caller ID read, "Catherine Mom." I froze. My hand hovered over the device, trembling violently. I am a rational man. I spent 30 years as a forensic accountant, chasing money trails and exposing corporate fraud. I deal in facts, in numbers, in hard evidence. I do not believe in ghosts. But in that moment, staring at the face of the woman I buried half a decade ago, my logic shattered. The phone didn't ring with a standard tone. It vibrated aggressively against the wood of the coffee table, a buzzing sound that felt like a drill boring into my skull. Why would Jason have a contact named Catherine Mom with that specific photo? Why was it calling now? My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that made me lightheaded. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. It was impossible. Catherine was gone. Her ashes were in the urn on the mantel, not 10 feet away from where I stood. And yet the phone kept buzzing, demanding attention, demanding to be answered. Then the ringing stopped. The screen went dark for a second, plunging the room back into shadows. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, but a moment later the screen lit up again. A notification. New voicemail from Catherine Mom. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I needed to know. I needed to understand what kind of sick game this was. I picked up the phone. It was locked, of course. Jason was a man who lived his life behind passwords and encryption. But Jason was also arrogant. He thought he was the smartest person in any room, which made him careless. I remembered a dinner 2 months ago when Sarah had asked him for the passcode to check a map, and he had sighed, rolling his eyes, and typed it in right in front of me. He used Sarah's birthday. Typical, predictable. I typed in the 6 digits. The lock opened. My thumb hovered over the voicemail icon. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the device. I felt like I was violating a grave, like I was about to step into a world I couldn't understand. But the image of Catherine, so real, so alive on that screen, pushed me forward. I pressed play and held the phone to my ear. The voice that spoke was weak, breathy, and terrifyingly familiar. "Jason, please. Tell Sarah to sign the papers. Tell her to sell the house. I am so cold here. I cannot rest while William keeps that house. The money is the only way to set me free. Please, Jason, help me." The phone slipped from my fingers and landed with a dull thud on the carpet. I staggered back, my legs giving way until I collapsed into my armchair. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I gasped for air, clutching my chest. That was her voice. It had the same cadence, the same soft pitch. It was the voice that had whispered goodnight to me for 4 decades. But the words were a nightmare. Catherine loved this house. We bought it 30 years ago, when the neighborhood was just dirt roads and potential. We planted the oak tree in the backyard together. We marked Sarah's height on the doorframe of the pantry. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the physical embodiment of our life together. It is worth $2.5 million now, sitting on a prime piece of real estate that developers have been eyeing for years. But to Catherine, it was never about the money. She made me promise on her deathbed that I would keep the house for our grandchildren. She wanted it to be a legacy. So why would her ghost call my son-in-law and beg him to sell it? I sat there, my mind racing, trying to find a logical foothold in this madness. I am so cold here. The money is the only way to set me free. It sounded like something out of a bad horror movie. But the voice was so precise. Too precise. I closed my eyes and replayed the message in my mind. I listened with the ears of the man I used to be, the forensic accountant, who listened to wiretaps and recorded confessions. And then I heard it. The slight, almost imperceptible metallic tint at the end of the sentences. The lack of breathing pauses that a sick woman would naturally take. The rhythm was too perfect, too consistent. It wasn't a ghost. It was a fabrication. A surge of nausea rose in my throat, quickly replaced by a cold, hard rage. Someone was using my dead wife's voice to manipulate my daughter. And that someone was the man who had just sat at my table and eaten my food. I looked down at the phone on the carpet. It was no longer a communication device. It was a weapon. Jason was gaslighting Sarah. He was making her believe her mother was haunting them, demanding the sale of my house. I thought about Sarah's face lately. She looked hollow, exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. She had been talking about bad dreams, about feeling her mother's presence. I had thought it was just grief resurfacing. But it wasn't grief. It was psychological torture. I grabbed the phone again. I needed to see more. I opened his call log. There were dozens of calls to Sarah, usually late at night, from this contact. Catherine, Mom. He was terrorizing his own wife, my daughter, using the memory of her mother. I checked his recent messages. There was a thread with someone named Vanessa. The preview of the last message read, "The audio file is ready." I added more static to make it sound like it's coming from the other sit-tone said. Transfer the crypto, of course. I felt a sudden clarity, sharp and icy. This wasn't about ghosts. This was about greed. Jason was a tech entrepreneur, or so he claimed. He always had a new venture, a new app, a new revolutionary platform. But I knew the signs of a man drowning in debt. The way he checked his watch constantly. The way he drank a little too much wine at dinner. The way his leg bounced nervously under the table when money was mentioned. He needed liquid cash fast. And my house was a $2 million piggy bank he couldn't break open because I was still alive and stubborn. I heard the sound of tires screeching on the asphalt outside. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps pounded up the walkway. He was coming back. Panic flared in my chest, but I pushed it down. I couldn't let him know that I knew. If he realized I had heard the message, he would change his tactics. He might become dangerous. He might hurt Sarah. I needed time. I needed evidence. I needed to be the hunter, not the prey. I quickly wiped the screen with my sleeve to remove my fingerprints. I placed the phone back on the sofa, exactly where he had left it, tucked slightly under the pillow. I stood up and moved toward the kitchen, grabbing a dish towel. The front door burst open. Jason stood there, his chest heaving, his face pale and slick with sweat. His eyes darted around the room, wild and desperate. He looked like a man who had just realized he left a loaded gun in a kindergarten. "Dad," he gasped, his voice tight. I turned slowly from the sink, letting my shoulders slump, putting on the mask I had perfected over the last few years. The mask of William, the harmless, slightly deaf retiree who only cared about his hydrangeas and the weather forecast. "Jason," I said, making my voice sound confused and a little slow. "You startled me. What are you doing back here? Did you forget something?" Jason didn't answer immediately. He strode across the room, his eyes fixed on the sofa. He snatched the phone up with a violence that made me flinch. He checked the screen, tapping it frantically to see if it had been unlocked. I held my breath. If he checked the background apps, he would see the voicemail had been accessed. But he didn't. He was too panicked. He shoved the phone deep into his jacket pocket and let out a long, shaky exhale. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, trying to compose himself. "Yeah," he said, his voice still trembling. "I left my phone. I need it for work. Important clients. You know how it is." He looked at me, then really looked at me. His eyes were searching my face for any sign of deception. He was looking for the forensic accountant. But all he saw was an old man in a cardigan, holding a dirty dish towel. "Did it ring?" he asked, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. "Did anyone call while I was gone?" I squinted at him, tilting my head, as if I was having trouble hearing. "Ring?" I asked. "I don't know, son. I had the water running in the sink. The pipes are making that clanging noise again. I thought I heard a buzzing sound, but I assumed it was the dishwasher." "Is everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." The word hung in the air between us. Ghost. Jason flinched. A muscle in his jaw twitched. For a second I saw a flash of pure hatred in his eyes. He despised me. He despised my longevity, my health, and my stubborn refusal to move into a nursing home. He hated that I was the gatekeeper to the fortune he so desperately needed. "I'm fine," he snapped, buttoning his jacket. "Just stressed. Business is crazy right now." He took a step toward me, invading my personal space. He was taller than me, younger, stronger. He used his physical presence to intimidate, a tactic I had seen 1,000 times in interrogation rooms. "You didn't touch it, did you, William?" he asked. He dropped the dad. I blinked, keeping my expression vacant. "Touch what? The phone?" "Oh, heavens, no. You know I can't work those new gadgets. Too many buttons." I stick to my landline. I let out a small, senile chuckle. It was the hardest performance of my life. Jason stared at me for 5 more seconds. He was assessing the threat level. He saw my gray hair, my reading glasses on a chain around my neck, my slight stoop. He saw a man past his prime, a man who was no danger to his brilliant high-tech schemes. "Good," he said, and the tension left his shoulders. He let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Yeah, probably for the best. You'd probably accidentally call the police trying to check the time." He turned his back on me and walked toward the door. "Tell Sarah I'll pick her up tomorrow for lunch." I called out, my voice steady. Jason stopped at the threshold. He didn't turn around. "She's busy tomorrow, William. She's not feeling well. She's been having nightmares. It's better if you give her some space right now. She's very fragile." He opened the door and stepped out into the night. "Don't wait up," he threw over his shoulder. The door clicked shut. I listened to his footsteps fade, then the car engine roaring to life. He drove away fast, too fast for a residential street. As soon as he was gone, I dropped the act. My spine straightened. The confused look vanished from my eyes, replaced by a cold, calculating focus. I walked to the window and watched his taillights disappear around the corner. He thought I was fragile. He thought Sarah was fragile. He thought he could use my dead wife as a puppet in his sick play. He thought he had committed the perfect crime, manipulating a grieving daughter and a senile old man. He was wrong. He didn't know that before I retired, my nickname at the firm was the Grim Reaper of Wall Street. He didn't know that I had brought down men twice as smart and 10 times as rich as him. He didn't know that by bringing Catherine into this, by using her voice to hurt our daughter, he had just signed his own warrant. I walked to the bookshelf in the hallway and pulled out a thick volume of encyclopedias. Behind it was a small wall safe. My hands were steady now. I dialed the combination. Inside was a burner phone, a voice recorder, and a hard drive containing the archives of my past cases. I took out the burner phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 10 years. It rang twice before a deep, gravelly voice answered. "Blackwood," the voice said. "It's Carter," I said. There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "William Carter. I thought you were dead or planting tulips in Florida." "Not yet," I said. "I have a job. It involves deepfake audio crypto fraud and my son-in-law. I'm listening. I need you to dig into Jason Bennett. I want his bank records, his crypto wallets, and everything you can find on a woman named Vanessa. And Blackwood. Yeah, I want to destroy him. I don't just want him in jail. I want him to lose everything. I want him to wish he was the one in that urn on the mantel." "Consider it done," Blackwood said. "Welcome back to the game, William." I hung up the phone and looked at the urn on the mantel. The moonlight hit the brass, making it glow softly. "I'm sorry he disturbed your rest, my love," I whispered to the empty room. "But don't worry. I'm going to make sure he never sleeps soundly again." I went to the kitchen and poured the rest of the cold coffee down the sink. My hands were not shaking anymore. The shock was gone. The grief was boxed away. All that was left was the mission. Jason Bennett had started a war in my living room tonight. He thought he was playing with a ghost. He had no idea he had just awakened a monster. I sat down at the kitchen table and pulled out a notepad. I wrote down everything I had heard in the voicemail. Every word. Every pause. I wrote down the contact name. Vanessa. I wrote down the term crypto. Tomorrow Sarah would come over. I knew she would. She wouldn't be able to stay away if she thought her mother was communicating from the beyond. She would come here terrified and broken, looking for answers, and I would have to play the part. I would have to watch my daughter suffer and pretend I didn't know why. It would be the hardest thing I had ever done. But I had to do it. I had to let Jason think his plan was working. I had to let him get confident. Because a confident man makes mistakes. And when he made his next mistake, I would be there. I wouldn't be the father-in-law. I wouldn't be the grandfather. I would be the auditor. And I was about to close his account permanently. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Blackwood. "Already found something on Vanessa. You're not going to believe who she is. Check your secure email." I opened my laptop. The game had begun. I was knee-deep in the soil of my front garden, pretending to care about the petunias, when Sarah's car swerved into the driveway. She parked crookedly, one tire up on the grass, something she would never have done 6 months ago. Sarah was meticulous. She was the kind of woman who color-coded her bookshelf and ironed her bedsheets. But the woman who stumbled out of that silver sedan looked like a stranger wearing my daughter's clothes. She was wearing oversized sunglasses, even though the morning sky was overcast, and her hair, usually a glossy chestnut cascade, was pulled back in a messy knotted bun that looked like it hadn't been brushed in days. I wiped my hands on my gardening trousers deliberately, leaving a streak of dirt. I had to stay in character. I had to be the harmless old man who pottered around his yard, oblivious to the storm brewing in his family. But inside, the forensic accountant was already taking notes. I noted the tremor in her hands as she slammed the car door. I noted the way she kept looking over her shoulder, as if she expected the devil himself to be sitting in the back seat. And I noted the new dent on the front bumper of her car, a sign of distracted, frantic driving. Sarah, honey, I called out, putting a little wobble in my voice. You're here early. Did you forget we were doing lunch tomorrow, not today? She didn't answer. She practically ran up the walkway, her heels clicking an erratic rhythm on the pavement. When she reached me, she didn't hug me. She collapsed into me. It was as if her strings had been cut. I caught her, the weight of her grief nearly knocking me backward into the rose bushes. She smelled of stale coffee and that distinct sour scent of panic sweat. Daddy, she sobbed, burying her face in my shoulder. It happened again. She won't stop. She won't leave me alone. I held her tight, stroking her hair with my dirty hands, not caring about the mess. My heart was breaking, shattering into a million jagged pieces, but my mind was cold as ice. I knew exactly who she was. It was Catherine, or rather the digital ghost of Catherine that Jason had conjured to torture our child. Come inside, sweetie, I cooed, guiding her towards the front door. Let's get you some tea. You're shaking like a leaf. I led her into the kitchen, the same kitchen where she used to do her homework while Catherine baked cookies. Now it felt like a crime scene. I sat her down at the breakfast nook and put the kettle on. The whistle of the boiling water was the only sound in the room for a long minute, punctuated by Sarah's jagged, wet gasps. She took off her sunglasses, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. Her eyes were sunken, rimmed with angry red circles. The skin beneath them was bruised purple from exhaustion. She looked 10 years older than she had last week. She looked like a woman on the edge of a psychotic break. Here, I said, placing a mug of chamomile tea in front of her. Drink this. It will help. She wrapped her hands around the mug, her knuckles white. She stared into the dark liquid as if it held the secrets of the universe. She called me at 3 a.m, Dad, Sarah whispered. Her voice was flat, hollow. I was asleep. The phone rang. It was her ringtone. The one I set for Mom 10 years ago. The one I deleted after the funeral. But it rang. I sat down opposite her, adopting a look of confused concern. I furrowed my brow, leaning in. Who called you, Sarah? Who are you talking about, Mom? She said, looking up at me. Her eyes were wide, terrified, pleading with me to believe her. Mom called me. I answered it. I know I shouldn't have. Jason told me not to answer it. He told me it's just my brain playing tricks on me because I'm stressed. But I answered it, Dad. And it was her. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated hatred for Jason Bennett. He wasn't just gaslighting her. He was positioning himself as the voice of reason. He was the one creating the horror and then acting as the savior who tried to protect her from it. It was a classic abuser tactic, isolating the victim within their own mind. What did she say? I asked softly. Sarah shuddered, a full body convulsion that rattled the table. She said she's cold, Sarah whispered. She said it's dark where she is. She said she can't move on. She said she's stuck because of the house. I leaned back, letting my mouth hang open slightly in feigned bewilderment. The house, this house, Sarah, honey, that's just a nightmare. Your mother loved this house. No. Sarah slammed her hand on the table, the tea sloshing over the rim. It wasn't a nightmare, it was her voice, I know. My own mother's voice. She sounded so weak, Dad. She sounded like she was in pain. She told me that your attachment to this place is an anchor dragging her down. She said she needs us to sell it. She said the money is the key to her release. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. I saw the desperation in her eyes. She believed this. She believed it with every fiber of her being. Jason had done his job well. He had taken a woman who was grieving, who was vulnerable, and he had twisted her reality until up was down and love was torture. Jason says, Sarah started, then stopped, biting her lip. What does Jason say? I prompted gently. Jason says I'm having a breakdown. She confessed, her voice dropping to a shameful whisper. He says I'm hallucinating because of the guilt. He says I feel guilty that we have financial problems while you're sitting on this goldmine of a property. He says my subconscious is creating these calls to force a solution. My hands clenched into fists under the table. So that was his narrative. He wasn't just haunting her. He was convincing her that she was crazy. He was creating a medical paper trail. If he could get her declared incompetent, or if he could get her committed, he would have power of attorney. And then he wouldn't even need my signature. He could go through her to get to me. He wants to take me to a doctor, Sarah continued, tears spilling down her cheeks again. He knows a specialist. He says maybe I need medication. Stronger medication. He says if I don't get better, I might hurt myself. I felt a cold chill radiate through my body. Stronger medication. That was the next step. Chemical restraint. He wanted to sedate her to make her pliable, to keep her in a fog so she wouldn't question him. I reached across the table and took her hands. They were ice cold. Sarah, listen to me, I said, keeping my voice steady and low. You are not crazy. You are exhausted. Grief does strange things to people. Maybe you just need some rest. Here, in your old room. She shook her head violently, pulling her hands away. I can't stay here, she cried out, looking around the kitchen with wild eyes. Don't you understand? She's here. This is where she is trapped. Every time I come here, I feel her watching me. I feel her disappointment. Dad, please. I can't take it anymore. I haven't slept in 3 days. Jason is sleeping in the guest room because he says my screaming wakes him up. I'm ruining our marriage. I'm ruining everything. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Just sell it, Dad. Please. For me. If you love me, just sell the house. Give Jason the money to invest. He says he can triple it in a year. He says we can buy a new house, a fresh start somewhere, with no ghosts. Please. I feel like I'm dying. I looked at the woman begging me to destroy her inheritance, her legacy, her sanctuary. I saw the utter defeat in her posture. She was broken. Jason had broken her. He had taken the strongest, smartest woman I knew and reduced her to a trembling mess who was afraid of her own shadow. I wanted to tell her everything right then. I wanted to tell her about the burner phone in the safe, about the private investigator Blackwood, about the crypto debts, and the woman named Vanessa. I wanted to play her the recording of Jason's voice message I had intercepted. I wanted to grab a tire iron and go find her husband. But I couldn't. Not yet. If I told her now, she wouldn't believe me. She was too deep in his web. She would think I was the one who was crazy, or worse, that I was trying to drive a wedge between her and her husband. She would run back to him, and he would know I was onto him. He would escalate. He would hurt her. I had to play the long game. I had to be the senile old man who eventually caves. I had to give him enough rope to hang himself. I took a deep breath, letting my shoulders slump in defeat. I let my eyes fill with tears. It wasn't hard. Sarah, baby. I said, my voice cracking. I didn't know it was this bad. I thought holding on to the house was what your mother wanted. It's not, Sarah cried. She told me last night. She screamed it at me, Dad. Let me go. That's what she said. I nodded slowly, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Sarah froze. Her sobbing stopped abruptly. She looked at me, hope warring with disbelief in her eyes. Okay. If it's hurting you this much, I said, looking down at the table. If it's keeping Catherine from finding peace, then maybe you're right. Maybe it's time to let go. Sarah let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She threw her arms around my neck, hugging me so tight it hurt. "Thank you," she wept. "Thank you, Daddy. You're saving me. You don't know. You're saving my life." I hugged her back, staring over her shoulder at the empty kitchen. I wasn't saving her life, not by selling the house. I was saving her life by lying to her. "I haven't signed anything yet," I said, pulling back slightly. I need a few days to say goodbye, to pack up your mother's things. You know I can't just walk out of here." "Of course," Sarah said, wiping her face. Her demeanor had changed instantly. The panic was receding, replaced by a frantic, manic energy. "Take your time. Well, not too much time. Jason says the market is volatile. He says we have a window of opportunity that closes next week. He has a buyer lined up. A cash buyer. No inspections. Fast closing." Of course he did. A cash buyer. Probably a shell company set up by his loan shark friends to launder the money. Or maybe just a quick flip to get the liquid assets he needed to pay off his crypto losses. "Next week," I agreed. Tell Jason I'll do it. But I want to handle the paperwork myself. I have my old lawyer, Mr. Henderson. I trust him." Sarah's face fell slightly. "Jason has a lawyer, Dad. A corporate specialist. He's really good. He's doing it for free as a favor to Jason. It would be faster." I patted her hand. "I'm an old man, Sarah. I'm set in my ways. Let me use Henderson. It will make me feel better." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I'll tell him. But Dad, don't change your mind. Please. If you change your mind, I don't think I can survive another night of those calls." "I won't change my mind," I promised. She stood up, looking lighter but still fragile. "I should go," she said. "I need to tell Jason. He'll be so relieved. He's been so worried about you. About us." She kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold. "Go," I said. "Get some sleep." I watched her walk out the door. She walked a little straighter this time. She got into her car and drove away, dialing her phone before she was even out of the driveway. Calling him. Giving him the good news. I walked back into the living room and stood in front of the window. My reflection stared back at me. I didn't look like a savior. I looked like a tired old man. But behind the glasses, my eyes were hard. He had pushed her too far. He had used her sanity as a bargaining chip. He had made her terrified of her own mother's memory. I went to the safe and took out the burner phone again. I had a new message from Blackwood. It was a link to a video file. Subject: Vanessa, casting reel. I clicked the link. A video popped up. It was a young woman, blonde, striking, sitting in a soundproof booth. She was reading a script into a high-quality microphone. "Hello, I'm your virtual assistant. How can I help you today?" Her voice was smooth, professional, but then the video cut to a different clip. A candid shot looks like it was taken from a hidden camera or a social media live stream. She was laughing, holding a glass of wine. "Yeah, I can do accents. I can do ages. I can make myself sound like an 80-year-old smoker or a 5-year-old kid. It's all about pitch modulation and throat control. And with the new AI layering software, I can literally steal anyone's voice. All I need is a 5-second sample." I paused the video. Vanessa, the voice actress, the mimic, Jason's accomplice. I knew how he did it now. He didn't just use deepfake software, Mo. He hired a professional to guide the AI, to give it the emotional inflection that machines usually missed. That's why it sounded so real to Sarah. That's why it broke her. I closed the laptop with a snap. Sarah thought I was going to sell the house next week. Jason thought he had won. He thought he was days away from a $2 million payday. He was wrong. Next week there would be a signing, but I wouldn't be signing a deed. I would be signing his death warrant. I picked up the landline, the one I told Jason was the only technology I understood. I dialed a number. Dr. Sterling. It's William Carter. There was a pause. William, is everything all right? You haven't called in months. I'm fine, Elliot. But I need a favor. A big one. I need a full psychiatric evaluation. Dated today. And I need a clean bill of health. Why? Because my son-in-law is trying to have me committed, and I need to prove that I'm the sanest person in this family. And Elliot. Yes, I need you to recommend a specialist for my daughter. Someone who isn't on Jason Bennett's payroll. I hung up the phone. The board was set. The pieces were moving. Jason Bennett wanted a crazy old man. I was going to give him one. I was going to be so erratic, so unpredictable that he wouldn't know what hit him until the handcuffs were clicking shut. But first I had to deal with the ghost in the machine. I had to find Vanessa, and I had to make her talk. Not with Sarah's mother's voice, with her own. And she was going to sing like a canary. I stood at the window watching the red taillights of Sarah's car fade into the darkness of the suburban night. The house was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. Before it was the empty quiet of a widower's home. Now it was the charged electric silence of a war room before the first strike. I didn't turn off the lights. I didn't go up to bed. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, locked the back door, and checked the window latches. It was a habit from a lifetime ago, a muscle memory waking up after years of dormancy. I went back to the hidden wall safe behind the encyclopedia set. The burner phone was there along with the hard drive, but tonight I needed something else. I reached into the back of the safe and pulled out a small matte black case. Inside sat a GPS tracker no larger than a matchbox, with a high-strength magnet on one side. It was military-grade battery life of 3 weeks, accurate to within 3 feet. I hadn't used it since I tracked a CFO who was embezzling pension funds to pay for a second family in the Caymans. I turned it on. The tiny green LED blinked once, then vanished. Active. I sat down at my desk, the heavy oak one I told Jason I only used for sorting coupons and writing letters to the editor. I opened my laptop, not the tablet I left out for show with the font size set to maximum, but a high-performance machine encrypted with software that didn't officially exist. I cracked my knuckles. The arthritis I complained about to Sarah. It vanished when I was on the hunt. For 30 years, I wasn't just an accountant. I was a forensic auditor for the state, and later a private consultant for firms that wanted problems to disappear quietly. They called me the Grim Reaper of Wall Street. I didn't carry a scythe. I carried a spreadsheet. I could look at a company's ledger and see the exact moment a man decided to sell his soul. I could trace a dollar through 10 shell companies and 3 offshore jurisdictions and find it sitting in a shoebox in Jersey. I destroyed men who thought they were untouchable. Jason Bennett thought he was a shark because he knew some buzzwords and wore Italian suits. He had no idea he was swimming with a leviathan. I started with the public records. It's amazing what people leave out in the open when they think no one is looking. I pulled up Jason's credit report first. It was a sea of red ink. Maxed out credit cards, missed payments, a credit score that was free-falling into the triple digits. But that was just the surface. That was the desperate flailing of a drowning man. I needed to see the anchor dragging him down. I logged into a database Blackwood had given me access to years ago. It aggregated property liens and court filings. There it was. A second mortgage on their condo taken out 6 months ago. A lien from a luxury car leasing company. And a lawsuit quiet and settled out of court involving a failed venture capital scheme. But the real story, the one that explained the desperation, was in the crypto. Jason loved to talk about the blockchain at Thanksgiving dinner, boring everyone to tears with his talk of decentralized finance and the future of money. I opened the file Blackwood had sent me earlier. It contained wallet addresses linked to Jason's email and phone number. I ran them through a blockchain explorer. It was a bloodbath. He hadn't just invested. He had leveraged himself to the hilt on speculative coins that had crashed and burned. He had put in everything, his savings, the equity from the condo, probably money he borrowed from friends. And it was all gone. Vaporized in a market correction he was too arrogant to see coming. I did the math in my head. He was underwater by at least $800,000. And that was just what I could see. The loan sharks, the private lenders he would have turned to when the banks cut him off, they wouldn't be on a blockchain. They would be in his call logs, in the dark circles under his eyes, in the terror I saw on his face when he burst into my house earlier. He didn't just want the house money for a new start. He needed it to stay alive. I closed the laptop. The motive was established. The desperation was confirmed. Now I needed to know the timeline. I needed to know his next move. And to do that, I needed to know where he went when he wasn't terrorizing my daughter. I looked at the clock. 1 a.m. Jason and Sarah lived 20 minutes away in a gated community that projected wealth but smelled of debt. It was risky. If I got caught, the senile old man act wouldn't hold up if I was found crawling under a car at 1 a.m. But the hunter in me was restless. I couldn't wait for him to come back. I had to take the fight to him. I changed into dark clothes, black slacks, a dark turtleneck, soft-soled shoes. I put on a baseball cap and gloves. I slipped the GPS tracker into my pocket. I grabbed my keys, not for my sedate sedan, but for the old pickup truck I kept in the garage under a tarp. It was registered to a shell corporation. It was invisible. I drove through the sleeping suburbs, the streetlights flickering past like frames in a film noir. I parked the truck 2 blocks away from Jason's complex. I knew the gate code. Sarah had given it to me years ago for emergencies. 1985. Her birth year. Jason really was predictable. I slipped through the pedestrian gate and kept to the shadows. The complex was silent, the manicured lawns looking gray in the moonlight. I reached their condo. It was a modern boxy thing with too much glass and not enough soul. Jason's Tesla was parked in the driveway, plugged into the charger, like an expensive toy. Sarah's car was parked next to it. The lights in the house were off except for a faint blue glow coming from the downstairs office window. Jason was up. I crept up the driveway, keeping low, moving with a fluidity that belied my 67 years. I reached the Tesla. It was a sleek, featureless machine, hard to attach anything to without being noticed. But I knew the model. There was a metal frame rail just inside the rear wheel well. I knelt down on the concrete, the cold seeping through my trousers. I reached under the chassis, my fingers searching for the spot. I found it. I pressed the tracker against the metal. It clicked into place with a satisfying, muffled thud. I gave it a tug. It held firm. I was about to back away when I heard a voice. It was muffled by the glass, but in the silence of the night, it was audible. It was Jason. He was shouting. I crawled toward the bushes under the office window. I pushed aside a holly branch, ignoring the prickles that dug into my cheek. Through the gap in the blinds, I could see him. He was pacing the small room, a phone pressed to his ear. He looked disheveled, his shirt unbuttoned, a glass of amber liquid in his other hand. "I don't have it yet," he hissed into the phone. "She agreed to sell, okay? She's broken. It's done. I just need a few days for the old man to sign the papers." He paused, listening to the person on the other end. His face paled. He took a large gulp of the drink. "No, don't you dare touch her. You listen to me, Marco. If you go near Sarah, the deal is off. I'll burn the whole thing down. I'm getting you your money. 2 million, plus interest. Just back off, now." He slammed the phone down on the desk. He stood there breathing heavily, his hands gripping the edge of the mahogany table until his knuckles turned white. Then he swept his arm across the surface, sending a lamp and a stack of papers crashing to the floor. He collapsed into his chair, burying his face in his hands. I watched him for a moment longer. Marco. A name. A threat. He was being squeezed. The people he owed weren't just banks. They were the kind of people who made threats against wives. A surge of protective fury rose in me, hot and blinding. He had put my daughter in the crosshairs of criminals. He had used her as collateral for his gambling. I wanted to smash the window. I wanted to drag him out by his collar and beat him until he couldn't stand. But I stopped myself. Violence was sloppy. Violence got you arrested. I didn't want to hurt him physically. I wanted to dismantle him. I wanted to strip him of every asset, every lie, every shred of dignity, until he was left naked and shivering in the wreckage of his own ego. I carefully backed away from the window, retracing my steps down the driveway. I moved like a ghost, leaving no trace. I walked back to the truck, got in, and drove home. The drive back was a blur of calculation. I had the motive. I had the method. I had the threat. Now I had the tracking. Tomorrow when Jason moved, I would know. If he went to meet Marco, I would know. If he went to see Vanessa, I would know. I pulled into my garage and covered the truck. I went inside, stripped off my dark clothes, and put on my pajamas. I washed my face, scrubbing away the feeling of the night. I looked at myself in the mirror. The old man looked back. But the eyes were different. The fog of retirement was gone. The focus was back. The hunt was on. I sat on the edge of my bed and picked up the notepad again. I added a new name to the list. Marco. I added a new task. Trace the loan shark. Jason Bennett thought he was playing chess with a pigeon. He thought he could knock over the pieces and declare victory. He didn't realize he was sitting across from a grandmaster who had been checkmating kings since before he was born. He wanted to sell my house fine. I would let him think he was selling it. I would let him set up the deal. I would let him promise the money to Marco. And then, at the last possible second, I would pull the rug out. I would leave him exposed with no money, no house, and a very angry loan shark breathing down his neck. And while he was dealing with that, I would drop the evidence of the deepfakes on Sarah's lap. I lay down, but I didn't close my eyes. I watched the shadows play on the ceiling. I wasn't just a father protecting his daughter anymore. I was the auditor. And Jason's books were about to be balanced with extreme prejudice. The phone on the nightstand buzzed. It was a notification from the tracker app. Target vehicle moving. It was 2:30 a.m. He wasn't going to sleep. He was going somewhere. I grabbed the tablet. A map appeared on the screen. A red dot was moving away from the condo, heading toward the city center, toward the warehouse district. I smiled in the dark. Go ahead, Jason. Run. Show me where the bodies are buried. I'm right behind you. The red dot on my tracking app came to a halt in a part of the city that smelled of old money and new secrets. It was the Marina District, a place where the rent for a one-bedroom apartment cost more than what most families earned in 6 months. I parked my rusted truck 3 blocks away, tucked between a dumpster and a construction fence, rendering it invisible to the casual eye. I didn't need to be close to the car anymore. I needed to be close to the man. I pulled the parabolic microphone from the black case in the passenger seat. It was an older model, heavy and industrial, looking more like a satellite dish than a listening device, but its range was impeccable. I slung the strap over my shoulder, grabbed my high-powered binoculars, and moved into the shadows. My knees popped as I climbed a fire escape of an adjacent brick building, but the pain was distant, a dull throb masked by the adrenaline flooding my system. I reached the roof, a flat expanse of tar and gravel, and crawled to the edge. Below me across the street was a complex of ultra-modern lofts, floor-to-ceiling glass, industrial chic, zero privacy. It was the kind of place people lived in when they wanted the world to envy them. And there, on the 3rd floor, was Jason. He was pacing in a living room that looked like a showroom, holding a glass of wine. He looked relaxed, his tie loosened, a stark contrast to the panicked, sweaty mess who had invaded my kitchen hours earlier. But he wasn't alone. A woman walked into the frame. She was tall, blonde, with the kind of sharp, angular beauty that looks expensive to maintain. She was wearing a silk robe and holding a tablet. This had to be Vanessa. I raised the binoculars. Her face was familiar. It was the woman from the video reel Blackwood had sent me. The voice actress. The mimic. I adjusted the focus until I could see the brand of the wine bottle on the table. Then I set up the microphone, aiming the dish directly at the glass pane of their living room window. The glass would vibrate with their voices, and the laser sensor on the mic would translate those vibrations back into sound. It was tech I used to catch insider traders whispering in penthouses in the 90s. It still worked. I put on my headphones and turned the dial. The static hissed, then cleared. Transfer didn't go through yet. Jason's voice cut through the air, crisp and clear. Marco is getting impatient. He sent a picture of Sarah walking to her car today. I felt a surge of violence in my gut, but I forced my hand to stay steady. He was talking about the loan shark. He was talking about my daughter being stalked. Relax, baby. Vanessa's voice purred. It was smooth, smoky, completely unlike the voice on the voicemail. We have time. The old man is cracking. Did you see his face tonight? He looked like he was about to stroke out. Jason laughed. A cruel barking sound. He's pathetic. He's wandering around that big house talking to an urn. He thinks he's going to hold on to it for his grandchildren. He doesn't realize he's funding our retirement. I watched them move to a corner of the room I hadn't noticed before. It was set up like a high-end recording studio. Soundproofing foam on the walls, a boom arm microphone, 3 monitors glowing with complex waveforms. This was the engine room of their cruelty. Vanessa sat in the ergonomic chair and swiveled toward the screens. She took a sip of water, cleared her throat, and adjusted the headphones over her ears. Jason stood behind her, his hands massaging her shoulders. Ready for the encore? Jason asked. Sarah needs a little push. She's wavering. She called me crying, saying she feels guilty about pressuring her dad. We need to hit her harder. Vanessa smirked. She typed something onto the keyboard. On the largest monitor, a spectral analysis of a voice appeared. I recognized the file name visible on the screen. Catherine Base Samples 04. What's the script? Vanessa asked, leaning into the microphone. Jason pulled out his phone and read from a note. Tell her that the house is burning. Tell her that every day she waits, the fire gets hotter. Tell her that her father is the one holding the match. Make her resent him. I watched Vanessa close her eyes. She took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling. She rolled her neck, loosening the vocal cords. Then she opened her mouth. The sound that came through my headphones made me gag. It wasn't Vanessa's voice. It wasn't even a human voice, not really. It was a digital resurrection. It was Catherine. Sarah. Oh, Sarah. It burns. The pitch was perfect. The tremor was identical to the way Catherine sounded after her chemotherapy treatments. It was a masterpiece of mimicry, enhanced by an AI filter that added a ghostly ethereal reverb. Why are you letting him do this to me, your father? He is hurting me. He is keeping me in the fire. Save me, Sarah. Sell the house, put out the fire. I watched Vanessa's face as she spoke. She wasn't sad. She wasn't emotional. She was bored. She was checking her manicure while she channeled the voice of my dead wife. Jason was grinning. He leaned down and kissed Vanessa on the cheek. That's it, he whispered. That's the money shot. Add a little static at the end like the connection is breaking. Make her feel isolated. Vanessa typed a few commands. The waveform on the screen spiked. She played it back. Your father. He is hurting me. They both laughed. They stood there in their $1 million loft, drinking expensive wine, laughing at the sound of my wife begging for mercy. They were laughing at my daughter's trauma. They were laughing at the destruction of my family. I had seen evil in my career. I had seen men steal pension funds from widows. I had seen CEOs poison rivers to save a nickel on waste disposal. But this was intimate. This was a violation so personal it felt like a physical assault. I pressed the record button on my device. The digital tape began to roll. I needed every second of this. I needed the jury to hear their laughter. I needed the judge to see their smiles. "Do you think the old man will actually sign next week?" Vanessa asked, spinning in the chair. "He will," Jason said, pouring himself another glass. "He's soft. He's old school. He thinks honor matters. He thinks he's doing the right thing by respecting Catherine's wishes, but once Sarah starts screaming at him, he'll fold. He can't stand to see her cry. That's his weakness. He loves her too much." I stared at him through the binoculars. He was right. I did love her too much. That was my weakness. But it was also my strength. Because a man who loves that deeply will burn the world down to protect what is his. "And what about my cut?" Vanessa asked, her voice turning sharp. 30%, Jason. That was the deal. I don't want crypto, I want cash. Cold, hard, untraceable cash. "You'll get it," Jason promised, though I saw the lie in his eyes. "As soon as the wire hits, I have a guy in the Caymans who will wash it. We'll be sipping Mai Tais on a beach before the old man even realizes the check bounced." I zoomed in on the computer screen. I needed to see the software they were using. It was a proprietary interface, something high-end. Deep Voice Pro. I memorized the layout. I needed Blackwood to find the license key to trace the purchase history. It would be another nail in the coffin. Jason's phone buzzed. He picked it up and frowned. "It's Marco," he muttered. "He's demanding a show of faith. He wants 10 grand by tomorrow morning or he starts breaking fingers." "Whose fingers?" Vanessa asked, not looking concerned. "Mine," Jason snapped. "Or Sarah's." Vanessa shrugged. "Better hers than yours, baby. You're the one with the golden goose." I lowered the binoculars. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so cold it burned. Better hers than yours. They were monsters. They weren't just thieves. They were sociopaths. They viewed my daughter as nothing more than a pawn, a leverage point, a disposable asset. I watched them for another hour. I watched them record 3 more messages. One for tomorrow night, one for the next. They were building a narrative arc of suffering. They were scripting a haunt. Wednesday, the cold gets worse. Thursday, the demons are coming. Friday, goodbye forever if you don't sell. It was psychological warfare. And I had the battle plans. I saved the recording file. I backed it up to the cloud. I packed away the microphone and the binoculars. I climbed down the fire escape, my movements mechanical. I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the lit window of the loft. I could see their silhouettes moving against the blinds. They were dancing. They were celebrating a victory they hadn't won yet. I took out the burner phone and texted Blackwood. "I have the audio. I have the video. I have the accomplice. Vanessa, she's the voice. They are using Deep Voice Pro. And Blackwood. Yeah, Jason owes Marco 10 grand by morning. Find out who Marco is. I want to buy the debt." There was a pause before the reply came. "You want to become his loan shark? No. I want to become his owner. If I own the debt, I own the timeline. And I want to be the one holding the hammer when the deadline passes. I'll make the call. It will cost you a premium. Pay it. Use the offshore account." I put the phone away and started the engine. The truck rumbled to life, a deep, angry growl. I drove home. The image of Vanessa laughing into that microphone burned into my retinas. They thought they were using technology to create a ghost. But they had created something far worse. They had turned a grieving husband into a forensic avenger. Tomorrow I would go to the bank. I would move some money. I would become the invisible hand squeezing Jason's throat. And while he was gasping for air, wondering why his loan shark was suddenly so quiet, I would be preparing the final show. He wanted a performance. He wanted a spectral visitation. Fine. I would give him one. But this time the ghost wouldn't be begging for help. It would be demanding justice. I pulled into my driveway as the first light of dawn touched the sky. I looked at my house standing strong against the morning gray. It wasn't just a building. It was a fortress. And the enemy was already inside the gates. But the commander was awake. And he was armed with the truth. I walked inside and went straight to the urn. I touched the cold metal. I heard them, Catherine, I whispered. I heard what they made you say. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I could hear her real voice, the one from my memories, not the digital abomination. Get them, William. Get them all. I opened my eyes. I will. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. Strong, black, bitter. I needed the caffeine. Today was going to be a busy day. I had a debt to buy, a daughter to protect, and a trap to spring. The phone on the counter buzzed. It was Sarah. Dad, she asked, her voice tiny. She called again. She says Friday is the deadline. I took a sip of coffee, staring at the sunrise. I know, sweetheart. I said, my voice calm, soothing, the voice of a father who fixes things. We'll be ready for Friday. Don't you worry. Friday is going to be a day everyone remembers. I hung up. Friday, the day they planned to break her. Friday, the day I would break them. The invitation said it was a memorial dinner to honor the 5th anniversary of Catherine's passing. But as I walked into Jason and Sarah's living room, it felt more like a coronation. The air was thick with the scent of white lilies, enough to choke a horse, and the lighting was dimmed to a somber theatrical glow. Jason had invited everyone. Our neighbors from the old block, Catherine's bridge club friends, the pastor who baptized Sarah, and even a few of his own business associates who had never met my wife. It was a packed house, a captive audience for whatever twisted performance he had planned. I wore my old charcoal suit, the one I wore to the funeral. It hung a little loose on my frame now, which was perfect. I needed to look frail. I needed to look like a man fading away, a man who needed help managing his affairs. I leaned heavily on a cane I didn't actually need, shuffling my feet as I navigated the crowded room. Jason spotted me immediately. He was wearing a black suit that looked brand new, tailored to within an inch of its life. He moved through the crowd with the grace of a politician, shaking hands, accepting condolences with a solemn nod. But I saw his eyes. They were bright, manic, scanning the room to ensure everyone was in place. When he saw me, a shark-like grin flashed across his face before he smoothed it into an expression of concerned affection. William, he said, his voice booming slightly so everyone could hear. I'm so glad you felt up to coming. We know how hard these days are for you. He gripped my shoulder, his fingers digging in slightly. It was a dominance move. He was guiding me, steering me toward the front of the room, where a large projection screen had been set up. I'm fine, Jason, I mumbled, keeping my head down. Just want to remember her. You will, he promised, and there was a dark undertone to his words that made the hair on my arms stand up. We have something very special planned. A tribute. I looked for Sarah. She was sitting in the front row, clutching a tissue. She looked even worse than she had the day before. Her skin was translucent, her eyes red and swollen. She was vibrating with anxiety. She looked like a wire pulled so tight it was about to snap. I wanted to go to her off to take her out of this suffocating room, but Jason blocked my path. Sit here, Dad, he said, pointing to a plush armchair right in the center directly in front of the screen. Best seat in the house. I sat. I felt exposed. The guests filled in the chairs behind me. I could hear their whispers. Poor William. He looks so old. He's lost without her. Maybe Jason is right. The narrative was already taking hold. Jason had been planting seeds in this community for months, painting me as a senile recluse, and himself as the dutiful son-in-law stepping up to take charge. Jason walked to the front of the room. He tapped a spoon against a champagne flute. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice thick with practiced emotion. 5 years ago, we lost the heart of this family. Catherine was a light to all of us, but she left a void that we are still trying to fill, especially for William. He gestured to me. A murmur of sympathy rippled through the room. I stared at my hands, fighting the urge to look at my watch. I knew Marco, the loan shark, had given him until Friday. Today was Wednesday. This was the Hail Mary play. He needed me to sign over the house tonight so he could leverage the deed by morning. "We all know how much Catherine worried about the future," Jason continued. "She wanted security for her family. She wanted peace. And recently, we found something miraculous." He paused for effect. The room leaned in. While going through some old hard drives, we found a video file, a message Catherine recorded just weeks before she passed. She never sent it. I think she was waiting for the right moment. And I believe that moment is now. My heart hammered against my ribs. A video impossible. Catherine hated cameras toward the end. She didn't want anyone to remember her sick. She barely let me take that one photo in the garden. She certainly wouldn't have recorded a video message without telling me. Jason dimmed the lights. The projector whirred to life. The screen flickered, and then there she was. A collective gasp went through the room. Sarah let out a small, wounded cry. It was Catherine. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, the floral one we donated to charity years ago. She looked sick, pale, but her eyes were clear. She was looking directly into the camera lens. "Hello, my loves," the voice said. It was her voice, but just like the voicemail, it was almost her voice. To anyone else in the room, it was perfect, but I knew the timbre of her voice better than I knew my own heartbeat. I heard the digital smoothness, the lack of natural rasp. "If you are watching this, I am gone," the video, Catherine said. Her lips moved in sync with the words, but the micro-expressions were wrong. The eyes didn't crinkle quite right when she smiled. It was a deepfake. A high-end, expensive, terrifyingly good deepfake. Vanessa had outdone herself. William, the digital ghost, said, her eyes seeming to lock onto mine. "I know you are tired. I know you are holding on so tight because you miss me. But you don't have to carry the burden anymore." I gripped the arms of the chair. This was a violation beyond anything I had anticipated. He wasn't just using her voice. He was puppeteering her face. He was putting words in the mouth of a dead woman to rob her husband. "I want you to rest, my love." The video continued. "I want you to let the children take over. Jason is smart. He is strong. He knows how to manage the estate. Please, William, for me, sign the papers. Give Jason the power of attorney. Sell the house, let me go." The video, Catherine wiped a tear from her cheek. It was a masterful touch of manipulation. "Do this for our family. Do this so I can rest. I love you." The screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute for 3 seconds. Then the sobbing started. Sarah was weeping openly, her face buried in her hands. The bridge club ladies were dabbing their eyes. Even the pastor looked moved. Jason didn't let the moment cool. He stepped back into the light, tears glistening in his own eyes. Tears I knew he could summon on command. I didn't know she recorded that," he lied out, his voice breaking. "But it's clear what she wanted. She wanted you to be taken care of, William. She wanted us to step up." He walked over to a small table and picked up a leather folder. He opened it, revealing a stack of legal documents. A pen lay on top. "We can honor her wish right now, Dad," he said, walking toward me. "We can do what she asked. It's the right thing to do." He held the folder out to me. The guests were watching, waiting for the touching conclusion to this emotional scene. They expected the grieving husband to sign the papers, to hug his son-in-law, to find closure. The peer pressure was a physical weight pressing down on my chest. Sarah looked up, her eyes pleading. "Dad, please," she whispered. "Mom wants it. You saw her. You heard her. Do it." I looked at the papers. I recognized the header. It was a durable power of attorney and a quitclaim deed for the house. If I signed these, Jason would own everything by morning. He would sell the house to Marco's shell company, pay off his debt, and dump me in a state-run facility before the ink was dry. I looked at Jason. He was hovering over me, his body blocking the exit. His eyes were hard, demanding. "Sign it, old man," they said. "Sign it, or I will destroy you." I couldn't sign, but I couldn't refuse either. If I refused now in front of everyone after that video, I would look like a monster. I would look like a stubborn, senile, old fool defying his dead wife's last wish. Jason would use that. He would use the witnesses here to fast-track the competency hearing. He would say, "Look, he's irrational. He's defying a direct request from his wife. He's not in his right mind." I was trapped. I had underestimated his cruelty. I had underestimated how far he would go. I reached for the pen. My hand trembled. Jason's eyes lit up with triumph. He thought he had won. But I had one card left to play. The card of the frail old man he claimed I was. I touched the pen to the paper. Then I let it drop. I gasped, a loud wet sound that tore through the room's silence. I clutched my left arm with my right hand, digging my fingers into the fabric of my suit. I squeezed my eyes shut and grimaced, channeling every ounce of pain I had ever felt in my life. "Dad." Sarah cried out. I let out a groan, tilting my head back. "My chest." I wheezed. I can't breathe." I slumped forward, letting my body go limp, sliding out of the chair onto the floor. I hit the carpet with a thud that wasn't entirely faked. My knees genuinely hurt. Chaos erupted. Chairs scraped against the floor. People screamed. "Call 911. Someone shouted. "Give him space." I lay on the floor, curled into a fetal position, making shallow, ragged, gasping sounds. I felt hands on me. Sarah was there, instantly screaming for help. "Daddy, Daddy, breathe." I opened my eyes a slit. I saw Jason standing above me. He wasn't looking at me with concern. He was looking at the unsigned papers on the floor with a mixture of rage and panic. I had ruined his moment. I had broken the spell. "He's having a heart attack," a woman shouted. "Is there a doctor here?" I squeezed Sarah's hand, putting just enough pressure to let her know I was there, but not enough to reassure her. "Catherine," I whispered, playing the part to the hilt. "I'm coming, Catherine." "No," Sarah wailed. "No, you're not. Jason, do something." Jason looked around, frantic. He realized he was losing control of the room. He couldn't force a dying man to sign a deed. It would look suspicious. It would look like coercion. "I'll drive him," Jason shouted, trying to salvage the situation. "The ambulance will take too long. I'll get the car." He wanted to get me alone. He wanted to get me into his car so he could... What, drive me to the hospital? Or drive me somewhere else? No. I gasped louder this time. Not him. Sarah. Sarah drives. I saw the neighbor, Mrs. Gable, step forward. She was a formidable woman with a background in nursing. "Don't move him yet," she commanded, pushing Jason back. "Check his pulse." She put 2 fingers to my neck. My heart was racing. Adrenaline does that, so I had the tachycardia to back up the performance. His pulse is erratic, she announced. We wait for the ambulance. Jason looked like he wanted to scream. He ran a hand through his hair, looking at his watch. He was calculating the time. He was losing hours. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes. The paramedics swarmed the living room. They hooked me up to monitors. I kept up the act, complaining of crushing pressure, numbness, nausea. It was a textbook angina attack simulation. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, I saw Jason standing by the fireplace. He was holding the folder. He looked at me, and our eyes met. He knew. In that split second, he realized. The timing was too convenient. The collapse was too theatrical. He saw the clarity in my eyes as they wheeled me past him. He knew I was faking. And he knew that I knew the video was a fake. The war had just gone nuclear. "I'm coming with you," Sarah cried, climbing into the back of the ambulance. "No," Jason said, grabbing her arm. "You're too upset. I'll drive us. We'll follow the ambulance." Sarah ripped her arm away. "My father is dying, Jason." "I'm going with him," she slammed the ambulance doors shut in his face. As the siren wailed and we sped away, I laid my head back against the pillow. I watched Sarah holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. I felt a pang of guilt, deep and sharp. I was hurting her. I was terrified her. But I had bought us time. I had stopped the signing. And now Jason was alone at his party, surrounded by guests who had just watched his father-in-law collapse under the pressure of his tribute. I closed my eyes. I needed to rest. Because tomorrow, when they discharged me, and they would because my heart was fine, I needed to execute the next phase. Jason thought the video was his checkmate. He didn't realize it was just the opening move of the endgame. I had the recording of him making the video. I had the evidence of the fraud. And now I had him cornered. He would be desperate. He would be reckless. And I would be waiting. "Dad," Sarah whispered. "Are you okay?" I squeezed her hand. "I will be," I whispered. "We both will be." The ambulance turned a corner, and for a moment through the rear window, I saw Jason's car peeling out of the driveway, following us. He wasn't giving up. Good. Neither was I. The hospital bracelet was still cutting into my wrist as I climbed the stone steps of the brownstone in the old historical district. It was 2 a.m. The city was asleep, but the man I was here to see never slept. I knocked 3 times on the heavy oak door. There was no answer, just the mechanical click of the electronic lock disengaging. I pushed it open and stepped into the scent of old paper leather and expensive scotch. Elias Blackwood was sitting behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from the hull of a pirate ship. He didn't look up as I entered. He was reading a file, the light from the green banker's lamp casting deep shadows across his face. Blackwood wasn't just a lawyer. He was a weapon. In the 80s, we had dismantled a Ponzi scheme that involved 3 senators and a cartel. Since then, he had gone private, becoming the kind of attorney you hire when you want to bury someone so deep the devil can't find them. "You look like hell," William Blackwood said, his voice a low rumble. He finally looked up. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and devoid of pity. "I heard you had a heart attack." I sat down in the leather chair opposite him. I didn't wince even though my joints were screaming. "It was a performance," I said. "I needed to buy time." Jason tried to make me sign a quitclaim deed in front of 50 witnesses using a deep fake of my dead wife. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. He didn't gasp. He didn't look shocked. In our line of work, shock was a luxury we couldn't afford. "A deep fake," he mused. "That is aggressive and risky. He must be desperate." "He owes 800,000 in crypto losses," I said, pulling the hard drive from my jacket pocket. "And he owes a loan shark named Marco another 50 grand by Friday. If he doesn't pay, they break his legs. If he does pay, he plans to put me in a state facility and bleed my estate dry." I slid the hard drive across the mahogany surface. "This is everything," I said. The audio of him planning the psychological torture of my daughter. The video of his mistress Vanessa recording the voiceovers. The metadata from the software they used. The GPS logs of his trips to the warehouse district. And his bank statements showing the embezzlement of Sarah's savings. Blackwood picked up the drive. He weighed it in his hand like a gold nugget. This is enough to put him away for 20 years, William. Fraud, elder abuse, extortion, conspiracy. Why are you here at 2 a.m.? Why aren't you at the police station? Because prison is too good for him, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. If I arrest him now, Sarah is just the victim of a con artist. She's the naive wife who got duped. She loses her house, her credit is ruined, and she spends the rest of her life traumatized. I don't want that. What do you want? Blackwood asked. I want him to destroy himself. I want him to sign his own confession. I want to recover every cent he stole from Sarah, and I want him to do it thinking he's winning. Blackwood smiled. It was a terrifying expression. You want a trap contract? Exactly. Blackwood opened a drawer and pulled out a fresh legal pad. He poured 2 glasses of scotch, sliding one toward me. Let's draft it, he said. For the next 3 hours we worked. We didn't speak about the morality of what we were doing. We spoke in clauses, in statutes, in the brutal, beautiful language of the law. We constructed a document that was a masterpiece of misdirection. To the untrained eye, and even to a corporate lawyer who wasn't looking for a trap, it looked like a standard, irrevocable living trust. It transferred the title of my house, my investment accounts, and my power of attorney to the Bennett Family Trust, with Jason listed as the primary trustee. It gave him immediate control. It gave him the liquidity he needed to pay Marco. It was everything he dreamed of. But buried in the definitions section, under subsection 14 paragraph C, was the poison pill. We defined the primary trustee not by name but by a set of conditions. The trustee had to be a person of good moral standing, with no pending criminal investigations. It also stated that upon the signature of the grantor me, an automatic third-party forensic audit would be triggered to verify the solvency of the trust. Here is the beauty of it, Blackwood said, tapping his pen on the paper. The moment he signs this, he is legally authorizing a forensic audit of his own finances to prove he is solvent enough to manage your money. He is giving us permission to look at everything. The crypto wallets, the offshore accounts, the payments to Vanessa, and the best part, I added, the clause regarding the beneficiary. Right, Blackwood said. The trust lists the beneficiary as the descendants of Catherine Carter. That means Sarah, but it also includes a forfeiture clause. If the trustee is found to have engaged in fraud embezzlement, or, and here is the kicker, emotional distress infliction, upon the grantor, the trustee's personal assets are immediately seized to restitute the trust. I leaned back, taking a sip of the scotch. It burned a good clean burn. So if he signs this, he isn't getting my house. He is pledging his own condo, his car, and his future earnings to pay back the money he stole from me. Correct, Blackwood said. And because it's a notarized legal document, his signature is an admission of competence. He can't claim he didn't understand. He can't claim he was tricked. He is a businessman. He is signing a contract that explicitly states he is solvent and honest. When the audit proves he is neither, he is committing perjury and fraud in real time. It's a confession, I said. A confession he signs thinking it's a check. Blackwood printed the document. It was thick, 20 pages of dense legalese on heavy cream-colored paper. It looked official. It looked expensive. It looked like surrender. You have to sell it, William Blackwood warned, handing me the stack. You have to look defeated. He is arrogant, but he is paranoid. If you look too eager, he will read the fine print. You have to make him believe he forced you into this. I thought about the hospital room. I thought about the fake heart attack. I thought about Sarah's tear-stained face in the ambulance. Don't worry, I said, standing up. I'm not eager. I'm dying. At least that's what he thinks. There is one more thing, Blackwood said, stopping me at the door. Marco. The loan shark. What about him? I bought the debt, Blackwood said. Just like you asked. Marco was happy to sell for 60 cents on the dollar. He doesn't want the heat of a murder charge if you actually did. So technically, Jason now owes you $50,000. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in days. Does Jason know? No. Marco just told him the debt was transferred to a private equity firm. He didn't say which one. Perfect. I walked out into the cool night air. The city was beginning to wake up. Delivery trucks were rumbling down the avenues. I held the contract against my chest like a shield. Jason Bennett was going to wake up this morning thinking it was the best day of his life. He was going to think he had beaten the system. He was going to call Vanessa and tell her to pack her bags for the Caymans. He didn't know that he was already dead. He just hadn't fallen down yet. I got into my truck and drove toward home. I had to get there before Sarah woke up. I had to be sitting in my armchair, looking frail and broken when she came to check on me. But before I went home, I made one stop. I went to a 24-hour copy shop. I made 3 copies of the contract. I mailed one to the district attorney's office marked, "Do not open until Friday." I mailed one to Sarah's therapist, the one Dr. Sterling had recommended, with a note explaining the gaslighting. And the 3rd copy I kept, that one. I was going to frame it. I arrived home just as the sun was cresting the horizon. The house was cold. I walked into the living room and placed the contract on the coffee table right next to Jason's forgotten phone. I sat down in my chair and waited. At 8:00 a.m., my phone rang. It was Jason. "William," he asked, his voice dripping with fake concern. "I heard you were discharged. Are you okay?" Sarah is frantic. I let a long, wheezing pause hang in the air. "I'm tired, Jason," I said, making my voice sound thin and brittle. "I'm just tired." "You win." I heard the sharp intake of breath on the other end, the sound of victory. "What do you mean, Dad?" "The video," I said. "Catherine. She was right. I can't do this anymore. I can't fight you. I can't fight the ghosts. Come over. Bring a notary. I'm ready to sign." "Really?" Jason asked, and I could hear the greed vibrating in his throat. "Are you sure?" "Just come," I whispered, "before I change my mind." "I'll be there in an hour," he said. "Stay right there. Don't move." I hung up. I looked at the urn on the mantel. "It's almost over, Catherine," I said. "The trap is set." Now all I had to do was wait for the rat to come for the cheese. But I wasn't just going to catch him. I was going to make sure he felt the snap of the bar. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. My heart rate was slow. I was in the zone. I checked the hidden camera I had installed in the living room bookshelf the night before. The red light blinked once. Recording. Everything was ready. Jason Bennett was coming to claim his prize. He was coming to take my house, my money, and my dignity. He was walking into a meat grinder, and I had my hand on the crank. I sat in the leather armchair, the trap contract resting on the coffee table like a loaded gun. The clock on the mantel ticked. 50 minutes until Jason arrived. 50 minutes until the final performance. Most men would spend this time pacing, rehearsing their lines, sweating through their shirts. But I wasn't most men. I was the auditor, and I knew that a cornered animal fights hardest when it thinks it sees a way out. I didn't want Jason fighting hard. I wanted him exhausted. I wanted him paranoid. I wanted him looking over his shoulder at his own shadow. I picked up the burner phone. It was a cheap, disposable piece of plastic, untraceable and lethal. I opened a secure messaging app Blackwood had installed. It routed the signal through 3 different countries before hitting the local network. I had Jason's number. I had Vanessa's number, and thanks to the malware Blackwood's team had injected into Jason's phone when he connected to my guest Wi-Fi on Sunday, I had access to his microphone. I put in my earbuds and tapped the screen. The audio feed hissed to life. I could hear the hum of an engine, the rhythmic thump of tires on pavement. Jason was driving. He was humming to himself, a smug, satisfied sound. He thought he had won. He thought the finish line was in sight. I typed the first message. I sent it to Jason. Subject, Catherine Bass Sample 04 message. Nice vocal layering on the deepfake. Vanessa has talent. But is she worth a prison sentence? I want 50% of the house sale, or I send the audio files to the district attorney. I pressed send. Through the earbuds, the humming stopped abruptly. I heard the notification chime. Then the sound of the car swerving slightly, the tires screeching as he corrected the wheel. What the? Jason's voice was a whisper of pure confusion. I heard the rustle of fabric as he picked up the phone. A moment of silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. No, who is this? He started typing frantically. I watched the 3 dots appear on my screen. Who are you? I didn't reply. Silence is louder than threats. I let him stew for 30 seconds. I could hear his breathing getting faster, shallow, and panicked. He was running through the list of suspects. Who knew? Who could possibly know? Only 2 people knew. Him and Vanessa. I typed the second message. This one went to Vanessa. Message: Jason is burning you. He transferred the crypto to a cold wallet this morning. He plans to leave the country alone on Friday. Don't let him sign the papers until you get your cut in cash. I pressed send. I switched the audio feed to the bug I had planted in Vanessa's loft window earlier. It was fainter, picking up ambient noise, but I heard her phone ping. There was a pause. Then the sound of glass shattering. She must have thrown something. You bastard, she screamed. I switched back to Jason's car feed. He was dialing a number. The phone rang through the car's Bluetooth speakers. Pick up, pick up, pick up, Jason hissed, hitting the steering wheel. Vanessa picked up on the second ring. You think I'm stupid, she shrieked before he could even say hello. Vanessa, listen to me! Jason shouted, his voice cracking. Someone knows. I just got a text. Someone knows about the software. Did you tell anyone? Did you brag to one of your actor friends? Don't you dare turn this on me, Vanessa yelled back. I just got a text, too. Telling me you moved the money, you're trying to cut me out. You're going to run with the cash and leave me with the felony. I smiled, taking a sip of water. It was working. The prisoner's dilemma. Separate them, feed them lies, and watch them tear each other apart. I didn't move anything, Jason roared. I don't have the money yet, that's why I'm going to the old man's house. I'm trying to get paid, liar, Vanessa screamed. The text said you have a cold wallet. I knew you were too calm. I knew you were too confident. You used me, Jason. You used my voice, my skills, and now you're going to dump me like garbage. Vanessa, shut up and listen, Jason pleaded, his voice trembling with desperation. I didn't send that text. Someone is playing us. Someone is watching us. Who is watching us? Jason, the old man. He's senile. He's having a heart attack. Who else knows, Marco? Is it your loan shark? I leaned forward. This was the pivot point. Maybe Jason yelled. Maybe Marco hacked my phone. Maybe he wants more money. I don't know, but you need to calm down. If you freak out, we both go down. I'm not freaking out, Vanessa hissed, her voice dropping to a cold, deadly register. I'm protecting myself. If you don't bring me $50,000 in cash before you sign those papers, I'm walking into the police station and I'm playing them the raw recordings. I'll turn state's witness. I'll tell them you forced me. You wouldn't. Jason breathed. Try me. You have 1 hour, or I burn you to the ground. The line went dead. I heard Jason scream, a raw, primal sound of frustration. He slammed his hand against the dashboard repeatedly. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! I checked the GPS tracker. He was pulling over. He was sitting on the shoulder of the highway 10 minutes from my house. He was trapped. He needed me to sign the papers to get the money to pay Marco and now Vanessa. But he couldn't come to my house yet. He had to calm Vanessa down. He had to find cash he didn't have. He was spiraling. I decided to give the screw one final turn. I sent one last text to Jason. Message TikTok Jason. The old man looks weak. If he dies before he signs probate takes 6 months. Marco won't wait 6 months. And neither will I. I heard Jason hyperventilating. He was sobbing dry, heaving sobs. The pressure was crushing him. He was being squeezed from 3 sides, the loan shark, the mistress, and the blackmailer. And he had no idea that all 3 of them were sitting in an armchair in his father-in-law's living room drinking tap water. He dialed another number. Sarah. I tensed. This was the risk. If he broke Sarah, if he made her suspicious, the plan could falter. Sarah answered on the first ring. Jason, is everything okay? You're late. Dad is waiting. Sarah. Jason said, his voice shaking. He tried to steady it, tried to put on the mask of the loving husband, but it slipped. He sounded manic. Sarah, listen. I need you to check the safe. What Sarah asked. What, but just do it. Jason snapped, then caught himself. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so stressed about your dad. I just need to know we have a safety net. Check the safe in the closet. Is the emergency cash still there? There was a pause. Jason, we spent the emergency cash last month for the condo fees. Remember, Jason let out a low moan. Right. I forgot. Okay, listen. I'm almost there. Just keep him happy. Don't let him sleep. Keep him awake. If he falls asleep, he might not wake up. He's fine, Jason. Sarah said, her voice sounding stronger than his. He's drinking tea. He seems peaceful. Just get here. I'm coming, Jason whispered. I'm coming. He hung up. I heard the engine rev on. He was pulling back onto the road. He was coming. But he was no longer the confident predator who thought he was robbing a helpless victim. He was a terrified, cornered rat running toward a trap because it was the only dark hole left to hide in. I took the earbuds out and put the burner phone back in the safe. I locked it. I arranged the papers on the table. I ruffled my hair, making it look messy. I loosened my tie. I slumped in the chair, practicing my tremors. The stage was set. The villain was broken before he even walked through the door. He was going to sign that contract, not because he wanted to conquer, but because he needed a life raft. He was going to sign it without reading the fine print, because his eyes were filled with tears of panic. I heard a car pull into the driveway. It was fast, aggressive. The door slammed. I looked at the urn on the mantel. Showtime. Catherine, I whispered. The front door opened. Sarah walked in first, looking anxious. And then Jason. He looked terrible. His skin was gray, his eyes bloodshot and darting around the room as if searching for hidden cameras. His shirt was soaked through with sweat. He looked at me, and for a second I saw the fear. He wasn't looking at a victim anymore. He was looking at his only hope. Dad, he said, his voice raspy. I'm here. I brought the notary. He stepped aside and a woman I didn't recognize walked in. She looked bored, holding a stamp. I coughed a weak rattling sound. Jason, I wheezed. I was worried you wouldn't make it. I wouldn't miss this, William, he said, forcing a smile that looked like a grimace of pain. I'm here to help. He walked toward the table, his eyes fixated on the papers. He reached for them, his hand shaking almost as much as mine. Let's get this done, he said. I watched him. I watched the greed warring with the terror in his eyes. I watched him pick up the pen. I didn't stop him. I didn't smile. I just watched. "You're doing the right thing," Dad, Sarah said softly from the corner. "Mom would be proud." I looked at Sarah. "Yes," I said, my voice suddenly clear, dropping the rasp for just a second. "She would be." Jason didn't notice the change in my tone. He was too busy reading the title of the document. The Bennett Family Trust. He saw his name. He saw the word trustee. He saw the salvation. He didn't see the cage descending around him. "Sign here," the notary said, pointing to the line. Jason pressed the pen to the paper. The ink flowed. The trap snapped shut. And as he signed his name, sealing his fate, my phone, the burner phone in the safe, buzzed once. A final message from Blackwood. "The police are in position. Vanessa just walked into the precinct. She's singing." I leaned back in my chair and took a deep breath. It was done. Now all that was left was the reveal, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. The elevator ride to the 30th floor of the Bennett and Associates law firm was silent, save for the hum of the machinery and Sarah's jagged breathing. I leaned heavily on my cane, my other hand gripping my daughter's trembling arm. She looked like a ghost walking to her own funeral. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her skin pale, her spirit completely broken by weeks of psychological torture. She believed we were here to sell her childhood home to save her husband from financial ruin. She believed she was following the orders of her dead mother. I adjusted my glasses, hunching my shoulders to appear smaller, older. Inside my jacket pocket, the hard drive felt heavy, a cold weight against my ribs. In my other pocket, my phone was recording. The elevator doors pinged open. We stepped into a lobby of glass and steel, a monument to corporate greed. Jason was waiting for us. He paced the marble floor, checking his watch every 3 seconds. When he saw us, relief washed over his face, quickly replaced by a mask of solemn concern. He rushed over, ignoring Sarah, and grabbed my hand. "William," he said, his palms clammy. Thank you for coming. I know this is hard, but the buyers are waiting. The wire transfer is ready. We can end this nightmare today." I looked at him. I saw the desperation vibrating under his skin. I saw the way his eyes darted to the conference room door. He was terrified. He had Marco the loan shark on one side and Vanessa the blackmailer on the other. He needed my signature, like a drowning man needs air. "Lead the way, Jason," I said, my voice thin and wavering. "Let's get it over with." He guided us into the conference room. It was vast, with a view of the city skyline that screamed power. At the head of the long mahogany table sat a man in a pinstripe suit, Jason's lawyer, looking bored. Next to him was a woman with dark hair and thick glasses posing as a notary. I recognized her instantly. It was the chin. The sharp, angular jawline I had watched through my binoculars. It was Vanessa. She was wearing a wig and conservative clothes, but the predatory gleam in her eyes was the same. She was here to ensure she got her cut the second the ink was dry. Sit, Jason commanded, pulling out a chair for me. I sat down slowly, letting out a pained groan as my joints settled. Sarah sat next to me, staring at her hands. The lawyer slid a thick stack of documents across the table. "Mr. Carter," he said, in a monotone voice, "these are the closing documents for the sale of the property at 42 Oak Street. As agreed, the funds will be transferred immediately to the Bennett Family Trust under the sole trusteeship of Jason Bennett. We just need your signature on the deed and the irrevocable power of attorney." Jason thrust a pen into my hand. "Right here, Dad," he said, pointing to the line. "Just sign here, and then you can rest. Mom will be at peace." I held the pen. I let it hover over the paper. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Jason was holding his breath. Vanessa was leaning forward, her eyes locked on the tip of the pen. Sarah was crying silently. I looked at the document. It was the trap contract Blackwood and I had drafted disguised within the stack. Jason hadn't even read it. He was too arrogant, too rushed. He just wanted the signature. I started to write the first letter of my name. W. Jason exhaled. Then I stopped. I lifted the pen. I looked at Jason. I let the confusion drop from my face. I let my spine straighten. I took off my glasses and set them on the table with a deliberate click. Jason frowned. "What's wrong? Why did you stop?" I turned to Sarah. "Sarah," I said, my voice clear, strong, the voice of the man who used to tear corporate fraudsters apart in courtrooms. "Look at me." Sarah looked up, startled by the change in my tone. "Dad, do you remember when you were 7 and you broke your arm falling off the swing set?" I asked. Jason looked frantic. "William, we don't have time for stories. The wire cutoff is in 20 minutes. Sign the papers." I ignored him. "Do you remember what your mother told you in the hospital, Sarah?" "She told you that pain is a signal. It tells you something is wrong. It tells you to protect yourself." Sarah nodded, confused. "Your pain right now, Sarah. The voices you hear, the nightmares. That is a signal. But it isn't coming from the grave. It's coming from this room." Jason slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, sign." "The damn papers, old man. You're losing it." I stood up. I didn't need the cane. I kicked it aside and it clattered across the floor. "Sit down, Jason," I ordered. My voice boomed across the room. It was a command, not a request. Jason froze. He had never heard me speak like that. He had only known William the retiree. He had never met William the auditor. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small remote control. I pointed it at the large television screen mounted on the wall. "You wanted to play videos, Jason," I said. "You wanted to show us messages from the dead. Let's play a game." "I have a video too." I pressed the button. I had hacked into the conference room's casting system 10 minutes ago using the code Blackwood texted me. The screen flickered to life. But it wasn't the deepfake. It was a grainy handheld video. It was dated 5 years ago. The setting was a hospice room. The sound of a heart monitor beeped in the background. Sarah gasped. On the screen was Catherine. My Catherine. She was frail, her skin paper-thin, but her eyes were fierce. She was holding the camera herself. "Sarah, the video," Catherine whispered. "My sweet girl, if you are watching this, it means I am gone. And it means your father is worried." Jason turned pale. He looked from the screen to me, his mouth opening and closing. "I need to tell you something. I didn't have the heart to say while I was alive," Catherine continued. "I don't trust Jason. I never have. He has hungry eyes, Sarah. He looks at us and he sees numbers. He sees assets." Sarah let out a sob, her hands flying to her mouth. "He will try to take the house," Catherine said, her voice gaining strength. "He will try to hurt your father. Do not let him. Protect your father, Sarah, and protect yourself. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing." The video ended. The screen went black. The silence in the room was heavier than before. It was the silence of a truth so heavy it crushed the air out of your lungs. "That's fake," Jason shouted, pointing a trembling finger at the screen. "He manipulated it. He's senile. He's using AI. He's projecting." I laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "AI?" I asked. "That's an interesting accusation, Jason. Coming from you." I pressed the button on the remote again. A new video appeared. This one was high definition. Crisp, clear. It showed a modern loft apartment. It showed Jason standing over a woman with blonde hair. It showed Vanessa sitting at a computer console. "Make her sound more desperate," the Jason on the screen said. "Tell her the house is burning. Tell her I am hurting her." The Vanessa on the screen laughed. She leaned into a microphone. Sarah. Oh, Sarah. It burns. The voice coming from the speakers was Catherine's ghost, the same voice that had tormented my daughter for weeks. In the conference room, the real Vanessa gasped. She jumped up from her chair, knocking it over. Her wig slipped slightly. Sarah stood up slowly. She looked at the screen, watching her husband orchestrate her torture. She watched him laugh as the fake voice of her dead mother begged for mercy. She turned to Jason. Her face was unrecognizable. The grief was gone, replaced by a rage so pure it looked like madness. You, she whispered. Jason backed away, holding up his hands. Sarah, baby, it's not what it looks like. That's edited. He's crazy. He's trying to break us up. You made me think my mother was in hell, Sarah said, her voice rising to a scream. You made me think I was crazy. You drugged me. You watched me cry every night, and you laughed. She lunged at him. She didn't slap him. She punched him, a closed fist right in the jaw. Jason stumbled back, crashing into the wall. Sarah, stop. I stepped forward, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. She was shaking violently. It's over, Sarah, I said gently. He can't hurt you anymore. I turned to Vanessa. She was trying to edge toward the door. I wouldn't do that, Vanessa, I said calmly. The police are waiting in the lobby, and frankly, they are the least of your problems. Vanessa froze. Who are you? She hissed. You're supposed to be a gardener. I am a forensic accountant, I said. And I just audited your life. I threw a stack of papers onto the table. They fanned out, revealing bank statements, crypto logs, and chat transcripts. I know about the $800,000 in crypto losses, Jason. I know about Marco. I know you stole $43,000 from Sarah's savings account to pay the interest. I know you forged my signature on 3 credit card applications. Jason slid down the wall, clutching his jaw. He looked small. He looked pathetic. You can't prove any of that, he spat blood on his teeth. I pointed to the document on the table, the one he was seconds away from signing. Actually, I don't have to, I said. You were about to do it for me. I picked up the contract. Do you know what this is, Jason? It's not a standard deed transfer. It's a trap contract. Section 14, paragraph C. By signing this as trustee, you consent to an immediate full-scope forensic audit of your personal finances to verify solvency. And Section 15 states that if any fraud is detected, you personally assume liability for all debts incurred by the grantor. That's me, and you forfeit all marital assets to the beneficiary. That's Sarah. Jason stared at the paper. You tricked me. I outplayed you, I corrected. The door to the conference room burst open. 4 police officers marched in, followed by a tall man in a trench coat. It was Blackwood. Jason Bennett, one of the officers asked. Jason tried to stand, but his legs gave out. I'm innocent. She did it. He pointed a shaking finger at Vanessa. She has the software. She did the voices. She blackmailed me, Vanessa shrieked. You liar. You paid me. I have the Venmo receipts. You told me the old man was dying anyway. Officer, arrest them both, Blackwood said, his voice deep and authoritative. We have the warrants. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Identity theft. Elder abuse, and extortion. The officers moved in. They handcuffed Jason first. He struggled, crying, begging Sarah to help him. Sarah, tell them I love you. I did it for us. Sarah looked at him. Her eyes were dry now, cold. My mother warned me about you, she said, her voice steady. She said you had hungry eyes. I should have listened. They dragged Jason out. He was sobbing like a child. Vanessa went next, cursing and spitting, her notary disguise falling apart. The room fell silent. The lawyer who had been sitting at the head of the table looked terrified. I didn't know, he stammered. I thought— Get out, Blackwood said, before I report you to the Bar Association for facilitating fraud. The lawyer grabbed his briefcase and ran. I was left alone with Sarah and Blackwood. I walked over to my daughter. She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. She saw the strength I had been hiding. She saw the father who had protected her. Daddy, she whispered, you knew. You knew the whole time. I nodded. I had to be sure, Sarah. I had to catch them. I couldn't let them get away with it. I'm so sorry I let it go on this long. I'm so sorry you had to be scared. She hugged me. It was a fierce, desperate hug. You saved me, she said. You saved us. I looked over her shoulder at Blackwood. He gave me a rare, small smile and nodded. It is done, William, he said. The assets are frozen. The divorce papers are already being drafted. He won't get a dime. And Marco knows not to come looking for you. The debt is settled. I let out a long breath. The weight of the last week finally hit me. My knees felt weak for real this time. Let's go home, Sarah, I said. Let's go to the house. The real house. We walked out of the office, leaving the contract on the table. It was unsigned, but it had done its job. It had baited the trap. As we rode the elevator down, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. Dad, she asked. Yes, honey, can we change the locks? I smiled. We're going to do more than that. We're going to get a dog. A big one. And we're going to plant a new rosebush for your mother. The elevator doors opened. The sun was shining outside. It was over. The ghost was gone. And the monsters were in cages. But as we walked to the car, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back to being just a gardener. I kept the burner phone. I kept the hard drive. Because you never know when the wolves might come back. And next time I wouldn't wait for them to knock. The silence that followed Sarah's fist connecting with Jason's jaw was heavier than the leaden weight of the atmosphere in the room. Jason slumped against the mahogany wainscoting, his hand cupping his swelling face, looking up at his wife with eyes that were no longer arrogant, but terrified. He saw the woman he thought he had broken standing over him like an avenging angel. Sarah didn't look away. She didn't apologize. She stood there, her chest heaving, watching the man she had vowed to love and cherish dissolve into a puddle of pathetic cowardice. Sarah, please, Jason. Whimpered, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. You have to understand. I was drowning. The debt. Marco. They were going to kill me. I did it for us. I did it so we could have a future. For us, Sarah repeated, her voice dripping with acid. You terrorized me for us. You made me believe my mother was suffering in the afterlife for us. You watched me pace the floor at 3 a.m, sobbing, begging her ghost for forgiveness. And you laid there in bed and pretended to sleep. That wasn't love, Jason. That was torture. She took a step closer, and for a second, I thought she might hit him again. You are a monster, she whispered. You are worse than a monster. You are a parasite. You fed on my grief. From the other side of the room, Vanessa let out a shrill, hysterical laugh as the officer tightened the zip ties around her wrists. He's not just a parasite, she screamed, desperate to distance herself from the sinking ship. He's the architect. He wrote the scripts. He told me to make the voice sound weaker, he said. Make her sound like she's freezing to death. It freaks Sarah out more. Jason scrambled to his feet, lunging toward Vanessa, but the officers slammed him back against the wall. Shut up, Jason roared. You agreed to it. You took the crypto. I took a job, Vanessa yelled back, spitting on the expensive carpet. You told me the old man was senile and abusive. You told me we were helping Sarah get her inheritance early. You didn't tell me you were stealing it to pay off a gambling debt. Officer, I want to cut a deal. I have his texts. I have the cloud logs. I can give you everything. Get them out of here, Blackwood commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos like a gavel. The officers grabbed Jason by the arms. He fought them, his shoes scuffing against the floor, losing all semblance of dignity. He looked at me then. He looked at the man he had called Dad for 5 years. William, he begged. William, tell them I'm family. You can't let them take me. I adjusted my cuffs, looking at him with the same dispassionate gaze I used to give executives right before the SEC raided their offices. You stopped being family the moment you pressed record on that microphone, Jason, I said calmly. Sarah turned her back on him. It was the most powerful thing she could have done. She walked to the window and looked out at the city, refusing to give him one last look of acknowledgement. Sarah. Sarah, look at me, Jason screamed as they dragged him toward the door. I love you. Keep walking, the officer grunted, shoving him into the hallway. The sounds of his sobbing faded as they marched him toward the elevators. Vanessa followed, cursing him with every step, listing his crimes to anyone who would listen. The elevator doors dinged open, then slid shut, cutting off the noise. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a clean silence. The air felt lighter. The smell of greed and fear was gone, replaced by the sterile scent of justice. I walked over to Sarah and placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't turn around, but she covered my hand with hers. Her grip was strong. He's gone, sweetheart, I said. Good, she whispered. I hope he rots. She turned to me, then her eyes dry and clear. Let's go home, Dad. I have a lot of apologies to make to Mom's urn. You have nothing to apologize for, I told her. She shook her head. I doubted you. I doubted her. I let him in. We all let him in, Sarah. The important thing is, we just kicked him out. We left the office, leaving the unsigned trap contract on the table as a monument to a bullet dodged. As we walked out of the building, I saw a police cruiser pulling away with Jason in the back seat. He was pressing his face against the glass, weeping. I didn't feel pity. I felt the satisfaction of a ledger finally balancing out to 0. 6 months have passed since the day the handcuffs clicked shut on Jason Bennett's wrists. The house is quiet tonight, but it is the good kind of quiet. The silence of a home that is no longer holding its breath. Outside, the autumn leaves are falling, covering the driveway where Jason used to park his pretentious car. Inside, the fire is crackling in the hearth, casting a warm orange glow across the living room. Sarah is sitting on the rug, a mug of hot cocoa in her hands. She is reading a book, a real paper book, not a screen. Her hair is loose and shiny again. The dark circles that made her look like a corpse are gone, replaced by the soft flush of health. She laughs at something on the page, a light musical sound that I haven't heard in years. She is healing. The divorce was messy, of course. Jason tried to fight for assets he didn't have from his jail cell, but Blackwood crushed him like a bug. Sarah is free. She is scarred, yes. She still flinches when her phone rings late at night. But she is free. I sit in my armchair, the laptop open on my knees. I am looking at a folder labeled Case 894, Bennett. Inside are the audio files, the deepfakes, the digital abominations that stole my wife's voice and turned it into a weapon. I hover the cursor over the file named Catherine Pleading. Wave. I remember the sound of it. I remember how it made my blood freeze. I don't need this anymore. The district attorney has the originals. The jury has heard them. Jason is serving 15 years for fraud and elder abuse. Vanessa took a plea deal and is currently serving 5. The story is over. I select all the files. I drag them to the trash bin. I right-click. Empty trash. A progress bar appears. Deleting items. I watch the bar fill up. Green. Steady. Final. And just like that, the monster is gone. The ghost in the machine is exorcised. I close the laptop. I stand up and walk to the mantel. The urn is there, flanked by fresh flowers Sarah bought yesterday. I pick up the framed photo next to it. It's the real one. The one from our 40th anniversary. Catherine is laughing, her head thrown back, her eyes crinkled with genuine joy. This is the voice I choose to remember. Not the metallic, AI-generated whimper Jason created, but the warm, husky laugh that used to fill this house. Dad. Sarah asks, looking up from her book. What are you doing? I turn to her, placing the photo back down. Just cleaning up, sweetheart, I say, just clearing out the last of the dust. She smiles at me. It is a brave smile. Do you think she knows? Sarah asks softly. Do you think Mom knows what we did? I look at the fire. I see the sparks rising up the chimney, disappearing into the night. I think she knew before we did, I reply. That's why she warned us. And I think she's finally resting now. I sit back down. The burner phone is gone, destroyed. The hard drive is locked away in a bank vault. I am just a gardener again. I am just a father. But as I watch the fire burn, I know the truth. I am the keeper of the gate. And if anyone ever tries to hurt my family again, they won't find a helpless old man waiting for them. They will find the auditor. And I will always balance the books. We often mistake family for a sanctuary, believing our blood ties protect us from betrayal. But my story proves that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones sitting at our own dinner table. I learned that silence isn't always peace. Often it is just the quiet before an ambush. True love protects. It never manipulates, using our deepest grief. While forgiveness is a virtue, justice is sometimes a necessity. Never apologize for protecting yourself, and never underestimate your own strength. A wolf in sheep's clothing is still a wolf, and sometimes you have to be the hunter to survive. If you enjoyed seeing justice served ice cold, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of truth and retribution. Let me know in the comments below. Would you have forgiven Jason, or would you have locked him up?